Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is Supercoach Challenges, and today we are looking at the round 22 review. Firstly, I'd like to just say I'm sorry I haven't been posting any videos the past few weeks. I was away for a week for work and didn't have anything to record with because I forgot all about it, to be honest. And then last week I was pretty sick, so really wasn't feeling up to it. But today we're back, and as you can see, it's been quite a decent couple of weeks prior to this one. I mean, we've moved into 57,972, which means in 2 rounds we'll have to catch up another 8,000 ranks to be able to get in the top 50. But I believe we can. As you can see, we only went up 1,000 last week, so we were actually into the top 60,000 last week. We had a few issues with the team, which caused for us to only get a modest rank increase this week, but we'll hopefully be able to turn this around the next two. Don't have trade, so there's going to be a few things we're going to have to just play around with. But I guess everyone is probably going through these issues. So obviously, without that, I have recorded who I had as the best top three from the previous 2 weeks. So I've got that recorded, but I won't say them. Leaves a bit of mystery for the end of year. So that will be interesting to see for all of you as well. So moving into the team, and as you can see, the defense this week was quite decent other than Stewart. I mean, Sicily had a down week, but Houston picked back up, and Dawson and Sinclair played the way we want them to play, and Day just got to 100, which was, I mean, that's average for him. You can see where the first issue kind of came, and that was in the midfield. So we've EC'd Merritt. He for some reason decided that he wasn't going to go up against North again this time. North probably put a little bit more work into him than they did the first time, where he had like 80 in like the first quarter. It was something ridiculous. So I guess North decided to put a bit more time into him. And as you can see, the rest of the midfield was all right. I mean, other than LIBBA. So from what I heard, LIBBA got a concussion. I'm not quite sure. Let's have a look. LIBBA had the tag from McGuinness, but copped an accidental knee to the head earlier. Yeah, so he did get a concussion. And he did have the tag as well, which is why I didn't actually look to captain either Bont or LIBBA in this game, because I wasn't really sure who Hawthorn might tag. But it turned out to be LIBBA. But it seemingly did not affect him. So, it was probably affecting him, but he also got concussed. So that was moved pretty quickly. And McGuinness probably moved to Bont, I would suggest, but it looks like he did all right, and it didn't affect him too badly. Led was kind of the one I was thinking about going for captaincy, but picked against it. I mean, 121 was great. I'm glad I didn't go Neil. I was kind of thinking about Neil, and something kind of like turned me off that. And it looks like it was the good decision, because Keys actually outscored him. Steele's gone back to being bang on average after those huge weeks where everyone thought he was back. It looks like he's just inconsistent. Brayshaw 102 is just fine, and the captain was actually Jackson. He looked like he was on for a lot bigger score. So 2 weeks ago, you may remember with Darcy going out, I kind of had a captain choice and decided to go with a bit of Pod. And the first week it really didn't work out that well, but last week, God, 170, I believe he scored 173 for Jackson. I didn't have the captain on him, but it was still great to have him in the team. I think it was a pretty high scoring week that week, and Jackson was quite a decent pod. And with that 124, we were very, very happy for our captain this week. Witts kind of underscored a little bit. Probably the wrong one to go on for the ruck in the end, but you deal with that type of stuff. I guess English was the one to kind of go with. And that's what we're kind of all finding. He's actually got through a season without an injury, so I think he's going to be pretty lock and load next year. Now, I think the ruck position is going to be quite interesting next year, because there's going to be a lot up in the air. Like if Grundy gets moved on, I mean, you nearly have to. I mean, you nearly go for Gawn again. He's just been ridiculous when Grundy wasn't in the team. But he will be a bit older. If Darcy gets moved to DeLong, I mean, like that brings Darcy into the equation as a ruck, because he'll be the solo ruck there, but he's also injury prone. Brings in Jackson, because Jackson has shown how good he is, and I think he's only going to get better. I actually wouldn't mind picking him as the R2. I mean, we'll still have Marshall, we'll still have English, we'll still have, Briggs could get better probably. It looks like GWS has settled on him as ruck. mean, there's quite a bit to think about. North's Sherry, with the way North are kind of moving, it looks like they will stop. Well, a lot of the older players are retiring, and I feel like Goldie would just be around the corner. Um, Witt's still going to be there. I mean, Nank's probably still going to be there. Essendon, so Phillips has retired for Essendon. That happened earlier this week, so that might give Draper a little bit more relevancy as a solo ruck. Whether they decide to swap him with 2 meter Peter will be interesting to see. Yeah, well, I guess the one that's up in the air is probably the Swans. I mean, Rob's probably going to stay at Adelaide. West Coast could also be interesting to see what they do with Nick Nat now retiring as well. I guess they're going to run Bailey Williams, but Bailey Williams isn't very good, so maybe they will look for another ruck. Hawthorns is interesting. They've got like 3 or 4 rucks they could play. And then Fremantle, as we said with Jackson, and Port Adelaide could be the place where Grundy ends up, and that could actually be a decent scoring place for him as well. So I think the ruck stocks kind of are going to be a lot better to pick from next year than they were this year, because I think there's going to be a few roles that are a bit more clear for us next year. So then looking at the forward line, Goulden just played his probably average game. I mean, he's actually averaging more than Rosie this year, which is pretty remarkable. You'd think like Rosie's had so much more like solo midfield time, and Goulden's still been able to out average him, which is pretty interesting. Sheasel playing just brilliant, like a 97 average. He's really keeping up with like what Dacos was probably putting out last year. I wonder what Dacos ended up with. Was he over 100 last year? Nick. I mean, that's one of the ones we lost last week with the injury to him. So as you can see, he's on the bench here. And we're kind of just covering with our rookies. I mean, we're not going to have a 0, but we're not going to be scoring great. Yeah, so he averaged 91 last year. So it looks like Sheasel's actually going to beat him for average, which is pretty ridiculous. Like, people didn't really think that anyone would be able to outdo what Dacos did last year as a rookie. And Sheasel, if you consider the fact that like Dacos, I feel like his position was pretty standard last year, whereas Sheasel, they've tried to play him in the midfield. They've had him down back where he's scoring well, and they just moved him around a little bit. Like, I just think Sheasel's been really, really impressive this year. And he's showing good signs to be like a good scoring player next year. Actually, quite a few of the North boys, so like Wardlaw as well, and Luke Davies-Uniacke are going to be very interesting next year. A little bit of a changing of the guard. With some of the mids, I think they're going to be picked because, Sheasels probably going defender midfielder next year, which would be nice. I don't see him being placed as a forward. But yeah, it'd be very interesting. And then we had Darcy Cameron score really badly, but, our forward line stocks weren't any better, so it was just going to be him anyway. Timmy Taranto and Windhager was to finish that out. So, what we're going to have to do, because I think LIBBA's definitely missing in matches, we're going to have to put Windhager up here. And I'm probably going to be hoping that a guy like Roberts gets a full game. Luckily, we can loop these two. When's Drury play? Because Drury locks in with forward anyway. So luckily, we can kind of lock in one of these two. I guess Bulldogs play late, so I could probably do this instead. I don't want to do that. I want to put Windhager on. I could probably loop forward with Windhager as well. That's an interesting one, because we could keep LIBBA and we just kind of keep this open to Roberts, who I'm not sure. I'll probably have to look at selection and see if Roberts actually gets a full game. I assume he came on a sub. He played only 61%. Pros is going to be an interesting matchup for them. Probably a hard one to play against away, so be interesting to see. So maybe this is probably going to be, I could probably just safely loop. The problem is, and it's probably actually going to depend on if LIBBA does get up, but I doubt he is. but because LIBBA have West Coast, so it's really flattening that he misses this game. But I guess that's something we miss out on. Um, Otherwise, I guess talking about the teams, talking about the games. I mean, like really, we've only got two more rounds left. We need to get 8,000 to get the original goal. We actually ranked 38,000th last week, and if you see before that, we were ranking the top 5,000. So it's actually quite interesting to see that we only went up 1,000 spots. Hopefully, some teams are really struggling. Don't really have anyone to field, and we can catch up to the extra 50,000. Let's talk about a few um, BC options. So I guess the issue this week was that and the issue with Dacos going down is I think Collingwood had like 3 Friday night games and then one like the second game of the round. So it's like you couldn't even really loop with Dacos at all, which was really frustrating. And this week isn't a great one with Constable on the bench there either. So I mean, yeah, you can't even loop for Constable unless I did it through. I mean, there's no one in those first three that I want to loop through my defense anyway. So we're kind of stuck with, we can't really loop Chesser. I mean, we could through the midfield, which is a potential, but probably just rather have it there in case there was like a late out or something like that. So looking at the VC, I mean, anyone, maybe Timmy Taranto can bounce back against Richmond. West Coast, North, sorry. Funnily enough, Coulton is averaging more than Rosie, Taranto, and more than Sheasel and Darcy Cameron. And I would actually be surprised to see what player. I think Dunkley would be out averaging him, but the rest would not be even close. Let's look at it. Only Butters is more for total points, and he's only averaging one more. And like we look at like the difference in teams for these two, it's actually pretty crazy. And Dunkley is the only other player that's out averaging Gordon. So the fact Gordon's a top 3 forward at the start of the year when we were kind of thinking that he would be good enough to be a sixth is pretty crazy. Like McRae, just painful the way that Bevo's playing McRae. We can probably get him quite cheap next year, which is good, but quite painful. I feel like Cogs has been like roughly scored with his scoring this year. He's like having a career year and only averaging 99, which is wild. But yeah, back to what we're supposed to be talking about, and that's captains of VC. So I feel like Taranto could bounce back against North. I guess if you have, I don't know who you would have really in this. Sheasel actually could be an interesting option for a VC here, and I'm actually kind of tempted to go for it because, after that, there's not much. Like I'm not like if we're looking at VCs, I mean Neil versus Collingwood maybe, but I just haven't really liked Neil. Like Neil's averaging less than Gordon. This is wild. Like Gordon's beating most of the guys in the midfield at this point, so that is crazy. And then if we talk about like, Essendon and Merritt, like Merritt against GWS, I don't love, especially at Canberra, or Greater West Sydney. I assume that's Greater West Sydney actually if it's John Stain, but yeah, I don't love anyone in these first 4 games. I mean, St Kilda Geelong, like that could be a Stewart game, but like this is a late VC. Who are we supposed to loot with? We can't loot with Constable. We can't loot with Chess because he's playing. Roberts probably plays, so Drury plays the second game. Ford plays the second game. GWS here, so it's like really my only decision to play is it has to be early, and that's why I think I'm going to go VC Sheasel this week. I think he's just going to score well against Richmond. Richmond haven't really locked down on defenders that well. I'd be interested to see. Yeah, they rank 15th against defenders, so I just feel like it's like probably the best out of a bad situation. I mean, you could go Timmy, I guess. They haven't done really well. I can't believe how cheap Timmy is actually at the moment. 490k, that's wild as well. He's below what you bought him for now, so but next year he's going to just be like a mid. Like all of these guys are going to be like mids, or defenders. Like they're not going to be in the forward line anymore. The forward line is going to be really, really interesting to select next year. Guys like Jackson could actually be really, really handy. yeah, so looking at that, then yeah, GWS Essendon. Yeah, I don't really love anyone. And then it gets to like Adelaide Sydney. I do like Laird as a captain option. Uh, I think he could do quite well. I actually think Dawson could do quite well as well because it's kind of like a revenge game. But you'd think they put a bit of time into him. Obviously, the Bont against West Coast is actually a great captain option. You're probably leaving it pretty late unless you have like a Matt Johnson or something as a cover. You could probably VC through him. Maybe I don't think he's in the teams at the moment. I haven't really watched much of Fremantle, but yeah, there's not much. Gorn was actually quite a good BC captain option until fucking they decided to bring Grundy back because who was it? Petty's injured. So yeah, he was doing really, really well. I think I actually straight captained Gorn when he had like the 160 or whatever. It's crazy. Yeah, so Marshall actually isn't too bad an option as well if you're looking for something different. But I feel like Sheasel into Bont or Sheasel into English wouldn't be too bad either, actually, because English has been quite good. This could be a wasted VC, but I feel like the options aren't really that good outside of that. Like if we're talking about options, I mean, it's only Timmy, and like at the moment, it just feels like Sheasel's he has had the down game here or there, so he had the 56, but like his 5 round is what 100 and something, 106, which isn't the worst. And if you got another 135, you'd be very happy with that. I reckon Timmy's 5 round average would be freaking shocking. What the fuck is the 5 round? Am I blind? Am I just not reading this right? 5 round average. 5 round average in 92, 3 round of 85. Like, let's just stay away from Timmy. It's like they've changed his role because, like, before he was just an absolute, like, pig, and now it's like they've changed it. I don't know. He had a good game against West Coast, but these have been really bad. I feel like if you were pod Toronto, you'd be really happy. I like anti-podding Toronto, you'd be really happy at the moment. And like guys like Dunkley, you can't even trust. Like he hasn't been playing well. Nearly can't trust. Collingwood Dacos would have been all right, but he's out. Houston could actually be interesting against Fremantle. I actually don't mind that. They haven't done really great against Benders, I wouldn't have said. What is position? Here, isn't it? Average beast. Oh no, defenders. Oh, they're fourth, so they're actually quite good. But yeah, I guess that's just my thoughts. VC I'm going to run with is probably Sheasel. Seems like the best option. Like if we look at he's probably got a better 5 round than Neil. The Neil 5 round is like 89. So it's a bit of everything. Like if it doesn't work, then I'm just going to go Captain Bont against West Coast, and he's probably going to go 150 anyway. Or you could do English either as well. So anyway, with that, we've got two more rounds to go, 7,000 spots to make. I think we can make it. We can do it. It's really hurt LIBBA going down because I feel like he could have had a huge score this week, and he's a bit of a pod. So we're just going to have to hope for the best with that. Hopefully Roberts gets a bit more game time. Otherwise, sorry I haven't been around really. Just been kind of sick and stuff, away from work. So if you did like this video, give us a follow, even just a follow for next year, because, I'm going to be back next year and coming up with a new challenge next year that'll hopefully be a bit better. It's a bit more competitive throughout the season. And if you'd like to join along with that journey, you should definitely get onto it. So anyway, with that, we'll finish the video there and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.